equals mc squared, r equals v over I equals q over t. That was how I started physics. I got all A's from each test because I knew what letter to put after the other. But if you were to ask me, well, what does that mean? I'd reply, it's just the formula. But then, my teacher told me about this brand new concept, and that was formulating. Instead of learning random letters in a specific order, if we knew the event that proves the formula, we could precisely create our own theory, our own formula for any problem. So I kept on formulating. Soon enough, instead of quickly drawing formula triangles on the corners of my test papers, I began to use my logic to understand what was happening. I still remember one particular test. It was a circuit question that asked why the current in one branch was weaker than in another. Normally, I would have either guessed or wrote down whatever I could remember from the night before. But this time, instead of doing that, I decided to physically imagine the electrons flowing through the wire. I pictured it like cars slowing down in traffic. And that question did in fact turn out to be correct. And that's it. That is how we can think like physicists, or scientists to be even more general. As cliché as it sounds, understanding physics is really not a matter that requires much complex critical thinking. All that is needed is some imagination and the ability to observe. Albert Einstein once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination encircles the world." I believe he wasn't exaggerating. Einstein himself developed his theory of relativity not in a lab, but in his mind, by imagining himself riding alongside a beam of light. It shows that physics does not start with equations, but rather with questions. The world will inevitably experience change. And in a changing world, we have to be willing to change our minds. I believe we have been too stuck up on memorization, knowing things by heart, and just knowing the order of things, to the extent we no longer have the ability to answer the question, why things are the way they are. And therefore, this leads me back to my concept of formulating. Instead of memorizing, understand. Instead of knowing it by heart, grasp the event. Instead of forcing your brain to think plain, allow it to flow, like a physicist. We need our best thinkers and learners who can make clear observations, detect patterns, explain paradoxes, and solve problems that seem impossible or unsolvable if left alone. It is this physicist's thought process that leads to new discoveries. It is this kind of wonder in thinking that leads to real change. And it is this kind of thinking like a physicist, that can change our minds. So for the sake of exhibiting this principle, I have created my very own formula right here in front of you. Let me apply this concept of formulating into our current environment. You are currently hooked by what I just said. This hook effect I have on you will last for approximately 5 to 8 seconds. Therefore, I can say that the time for hook is equal to 8 seconds. I can name your interest in my speech as I, and the number of hook words I say as H. And there we have it. I, your interest, is equal to H, the number of hook words I say, times A, how much each one grabs your attention. divided by time. In plain English, that just means every hook word I say makes your attention spike, and then it slowly fades unless I spark it again. Now you know how to formulate by yourself. And the best thing about physics is that you can apply it to anything you want. So go ahead, formulate, understand, and think like a physicist to change the future.